Okay, so hey, this is Jana with Purl Together, and I am interviewing my good friend Valerie Hill from, what's the name of your town?
Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. West Coast.
I'm trying to remember how we met initially. It was on Ravelry in the crazy
Yep.
group. We were both moderators, I think, at the time.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think we were both in the group first, and then somehow, I kind of forget how that all happened, but we somehow became moderators.
And we did all those swaps.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a big swap thread. Okay, so yeah, we had a big swap group. I remember they would have like trading. There was trading all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like people would put up their skein of yarn that they maybe had fallen out of love with, and then somebody would go, me, and then it was amazing. There were so many swaps going on. And I never got burned. Honestly, I did not get burned at all.
I can't remember if I did or not.
No, I always got everything that was committed to me. I thought that was pretty amazing. A bunch of crazy knitter, stranger women all over the country swapping yarn. It was serious. We were like, refresh. It was a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I was on a very poor internet connection out at the farm. Like, did not have high speed. So, yes.
I remember that.
I'd be rebooting the damn thing to try to keep up.
Yeah, because I remember how it worked where somebody would say, okay, I have this skein of whatever that I'm not in love with anymore. And then if you were the first one to claim it, then it would be your responsibility to put up something else next. And then like the next person would claim that. So it was this huge, big roundabout.
Yes.
Round robin. Yeah, crazy.
I think I stopped finally because I didn't have anything I was prepared to part with.
Or we had like maxed out the postal budget.
Yeah, the border guys did look at me oddly when I'd be driving, because I live very close to the border, as you know, so I'd nip across the border to mail my stuff, and yeah.
Right into Washington State, right? For those geographically challenged viewers. Yeah, right over from Washington State.
Head to Seattle, keep going north on I-5, and you will get to Canada and my house eventually.
So that was like 10 years ago, we decided, 10 or 11 years ago now, that's how we met first, online and on Ravelry.com. And we we struck up kind of a friendship there and typed back and forth, instant messaged each other. I think, didn't we use like Yahoo instant message back then? I mean, that was some ridiculously antiquated
Probably, yeah.
Like, people don't even use it anymore, but that's how that started. And then I remember we'd email a little bit. And anyway, fast forward to last fall, Val you were on a cross-country road trip and posted on Facebook that you were headed west on I-80, and you were somewhere in like Iowa, I think. And I remember being like, I'm near I-80. I'm like, Val, you should stop. And I like didn't know if you really would. And I remember thinking, I wonder if she really will. And then you said, okay. And I was like, oh my word. I was super excited to finally meet you in person. After 10 years of talking about knitting, I was super excited to meet you in person. So and you got a little lost. That was funny. I mean,
story of my life when I'm on a road trip, even with GPS. I miss an exit or something happens, and
So Val stayed a couple of days and came with me to my little local knit night, which is like 5 people, But it was fun. It was neat to meet you in person. So since then, Val has joined and participates in our Purl Together Facebook group and our Ravelry Purl Together group. And I want you to show what you just finished. Show your Inara Wrap, which I've just wrapped up the Inara Wrap knit along, and Val is one of the only other people that's done at this point. Most everybody's in progress, but we're pretty speedy knitters, really.
Well, like I said, it helps that I'm not working right now.
But that's fantastic. And you are knitting monogamous. Usually you have many things going.
Yeah, instead of going to a job, I was knitting all day.
Yes. So normally, though, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, normally, though, you are primarily a sock knitter, yes?
Yes.
So tell us about your preferred sock knitting methods and why.
Toe up every time.
Well,
because I can try it on.
You have one that's cuffed down.
Yeah, but I don't like the way the heel looks, so it could be headed to the frog pond.
Oh, it's lovely. Hold it up. Oh, that's fantastic. Now tell us what the name of the pattern is.
I would if I could remember.
You knew I was going to ask you. Is that the
Chiana, I think?
I'll put it in a link. I have it in my notes somewhere. I'll put it in the link down below if people are interested in that. It's fantastic.
Go find me on Ravelry. I'm Hills Hounds.
All together, one word.
Ravelry, yeah, all one word. Hills Hounds.
Yep, I'll put that down below as well.
And it's there.
So we'll link your project page on Ravelry down below.
Okay.
You guys can see the amazing stuff that Val does.
Lots of socks.
Normally though, you knit toe up and you prefer the riverbed heel architecture.
That's the one I've been doing almost always lately. Yeah.
So why did you settle upon that? Does it just fit really well, or?
Yeah, I read her book.
Okay.
I read Cat Bordhi's book.
I'll find it, but I'll link it down below. It's Cat Bordhi and her pathways to sock knitting pathways, something like that. I'll link it down below when I find it.
Okay, I finished this last night. There's that riverbed heel.
Nice.
Where you do the increases, you start like mid-sole. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing them, on the side, you do them on the sole. Same deal. Do a bunch. Do all your, except instead of doing half on each side, you do them all on the sole on either side. So it makes this little pouch for your heel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then here's what I'm unsure of. When you knit the flap, wait, hold it back up. When you knit so you do the increases on the bottom, right? So you make a V shape that's on the sole. Yep. But then how do you knit, are you ever separating your heel stitches from the rest? Okay. Now, yeah. We can
like this. Oops.
So do you ever separate it though and just knit the flap, or are you still always knitting all the stitches in the round?
Nope. You get to where you would finish your gusset increases if you're doing side gussets.
Right.
And then you just work the heel, just the heel needle, like the sole needle, you just work across on it. Then you do the heel flap back and forth, picking up stitches on either side.
Oh, so you pick them up on either side as you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just, instead of putting the gussets on the side where you're used to them, you're putting them on the sole of the foot. Everything else is the same. There's a little bitty short row heel extension. I don't know if you can see it on this busy thing. It starts about there. God, this is boring. You work that back and forth with short row. I like short rows.
Yeah.
And then you pick those all up and you start eating up your side stitches.
Okay.
Sure. Hanging out, not doing anything. Anyway.
I'll put a link to the book down below if people are interested in checking that out. Val always does fantastic, like twisted stitch, traveling, twisted cables, and all this complicated stuff that's like,
I love those. They're fun.
I know, but most people, it's a brain splodey for most people, really.
And don't use a cable needle. It's easier if you're not flipping that little thing back and forth. Do you have one of these?
What is that?
It's a D-pillar.
How did we get from twisted stitches to D-pillar?
Well, because I have this fancy colorwork sock sitting here beside me that I knit it and its friend. This one I haven't D-pilled yet. I was D-pilling them when it was time for our chat. So
interesting.
So it's sitting here, and I thought, oh hey,
I do have a stone. I have a pumice stone that's the same.
I don't like those. This is like a tiny razor. If you could.
Because we're old enough to need to do that, right? We have we're in our world.
It's got little blades that spin.
That's somewhat frightening.
Outside of the cover. Anyway.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
don't have to get one. I like it much better than the pumice stone.
Yeah, and this is see, that's what I use. I use the pumice, the right.
That's scary. Don't you rub holes in your stuff?
I just got it. I haven't used it yet.
See this? You just go, and it just buzzes off any little protruding bits, pills.
Kind of like when you're, an older woman and you might have the occasional.
That's what the tweezers are for.
And then you're in there with your.
Try this thing though.
Where did you find that?
I've had it for, it's Remington. I've had it for years. I got it at a London Drugs, which is it has drugs, but it also has household stuff. It's got everything.
It's like the Canuck version of Walgreens.
Maybe.
Okay.
We don't have Walgreens.
Well, it's like a pharmacy drugstore. Sure.
That's my gadget for the day.
And I remember when I first met you, you were making like a ton of those felted clog slippers. Like
I
you
need to
those
make
all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It works good for those too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes those come out of the dryer and they're super hairy and crazy looking. Yeah, that thing works really well.
So what do you think over the years? I mean, well, first, let me back up. Do you recall how you first learned to knit? Do you remember? Remember how you first learned?
My sister was knitting something, and I thought, if she can knit, so can I.
Damn it.
Pretty much. So, yeah, I started knitting. She abandoned it not long afterwards, and I kept going.
And so how old were you when that happened?
I was in my 20s.
Oh, okay. So you weren't, I thought I was visualizing you like as a 7-year-old, having this little
we were
rivalry with your sister. Yeah.
No, young women, both of us moved away from home. I think she was knitting some scarf or something, and I thought, I can do that. And that's when I started collecting my mountains of Vogue knitting magazines, and I knit a number of color work or cabled sweaters from there, but I would only knit the ones that were worsted or heavier, because I wasn't messing around with that skinny yarn.
You were scared of the skinny yarn?
Skinny yarn, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't going near it.
So how many years did it take for you to get over the fear of skinny yarn?
A long time. And then I think I quit knitting for a while. And then my friend Bridget, that I know.
She just joined the group?
She just joined the group, yeah. We knew each other from greyhounds, we raced our greyhounds and stuff. And
for the U.S. people, that she doesn't mean greyhound buses. She means actual dogs that race races.
Yeah, amateur fun racing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I knew her through that, and one time she was knitting a sock on 2 circs.
Circular needles, for those that don't know.
Because DPNs are the devil. I knit too loosely, and I'm sorry I don't have an example, but yes, they just fall out. I knit so loose that they just escape.
Val's a loose knitter.
Yes.
Nor is she monogamous. I mean, with her knitting, that is.
So, yeah, Bridget was knitting a sock on circs, and I thought, I can do that. I love circular needles. I always have.
Yeah.
I used them for all my sweaters way back.
Sure.
So I
started. Fantastic. So what do you think is one of the most challenging projects you've ever done? Like that you got through it, but you'd probably never do it again. Okay, you can ponder that. And
I'll have to think about that. Sorry. I should have done my homework before.
You were not sufficiently podcast prepared. Of course, I didn't really tell you that's all right. I didn't really give you the opportunity to prepare ahead of time, so that's okay. It's okay. So what do you have in your, what do you want to do next? What's in your queue?
Well, I have a lot of, I use for this beautiful thing, and I really think it is beautiful.
You should hold it up though. I mean, people can't, I want people to truly appreciate the gorgeousness of that.
Much of it. Have I even got the right, I've got the wrong side out even.
It's lovely. It's fantastic.
There's miles of it. Like it's
Yeah.
7-ish feet. Come back. 7-ish feet long,
So
and
would you ever, you had it on like a scarf, but would you ever wear it like just draped over your shoulders and then flung over one side? Like draped like a shawl.
I suppose
See,
I could.
that's lovely too.
There's about 3 feet of it down my back, and my front. Yeah, it's big.
You could twirl it.
Oh yeah, like you with the little ends. Zoo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Yeah, I guess I
Yeah,
could
mine's
close
really,
that
really,
in,
yeah,
too.
mine's really long too. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I like it so much. I actually thought about knitting another one, but
Yeah.
maybe just like we were talking about earlier, just in plain garter, so it'd be super mindless.
Yeah, it's great Netflix knitting.
Especially with that knitting in the ends as you go. Like,
Yeah, so
that
if
was world changing, because if I would have had to darn in all these ends,
the world, and let me just say, you were skeptical about that because when I first brought that up, like carrying along the end at the back, you're like, no, that's gonna
it'll
look
look like hell.
awful.
Yeah. Turns out, yeah, I snipped them all off. I blocked it last night and I snipped off all the little ends today, and
It's great.
yeah.
Yeah. So let
I'm
me ask you this: if
pleased.
you were gonna knit that again, like omitting the lace section, would you still do the stripes with the color changes though to
Oh
tie
yeah,
it together?
I've changed colors millions of times. I'd go get that bin of sock yarn bits.
Right. Let's talk
And
about that. Let's talk
yeah,
about. You probably have a Rubbermaid tub full of sock yarn leftovers.
yep.
So have you abandoned the puff whatever thing? What
The
was that?
hexapuff.
Okay,
They were
not
hexagon
Hufflepuff.
shaped.
A Hufflepuff
Um,
cartoon character.
I haven't worked on it in a few years. It was supposed to be a little mindless knit a puff while you're sitting around staring at the tube. And I think I have close to 300 of the little beggars.
That you've already made?
Yeah, I have this bag full of them.
Wow.
But I figured I needed, I think at least 400 to make something of a useful size. So I need to knit more. And right
But
now,
you're 75% done, it sounds like.
I just don't see going back to it right now. So I don't know.
So was it a thing where you knitted each little hexagonal thing?
Yeah, and they're only
Right.
like,
But then do you have to sew them together or do you join as you go?
well, the designer of the pattern, I bought the pattern and then I'd never used it. So how stupid was that?
It happens.
But I was inspired by her pattern. She knit all these little hexagons, and then she tied the corners together. So there's little ties everywhere. And I thought, well, I'm not having little ties on mine. I'm going to do, and I thought it would look like stained glass if I used like black yarn and either did some kind of I-cord.
Oh, right.
Or I mean, I can crochet as long as there's no pattern involved, like stab the thing in, pull in a loop, like so I could connect them with crochet as well. So maybe someday. So it's just living in a bag.
I know. So here's the thing. I'll talk about this later, but the little mitered square things, I have a similar situation. Yeah. I'm not feeling it anymore.
Yeah.
So I might take my own advice and like frog it.
I can't frog mine because there's
many of them. Yes.
Yes, and they're each a finished little object. There's no ends sticking out, because as I knit them, I would take the end on the yarn and stab it inside and bury it and snip it, and so they're each finished.
Are they puffed? Are they stuffed and puffed?
There's a little bit of stuffing in them.
And you've already done like 300.
Not quite, but close. Yeah, I know.
Well, those winters coming up on the prairie, you're gonna.
Yeah, I'll probably need a blanket like that.
You'll need a blankie.
But I'll need more of these too, I think. It's cold there.
Val is considering, upon her retirement, moving eastward to the prairies of Canada. Yeah. Where she can enjoy the windblown, blizzardy winter like most of us in Wyoming. Like
I was born in
we'll be like,
Saskatchewan.
we'll be like typing and commiserating about how sucky the wind is and how much it drifted and how, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what I always figure? I always bitch about the wind, and I think, well, like if there's one thing that would make me move, it would be the wind. But then I'm like, you know what? If it wasn't windy, more people would live here, and I wouldn't like that.
Yeah. Like the climate here is, if you're gardening, we're zone 8 here. We can grow just about anything except not pineapples or
no coconuts and bananas in BC.
Yeah, we can't grow citrus fruit either. It's because we do get a couple of frosts in the winter. Ooh. Yeah, it'll be a big change. Like the climate, this is the best climate in Canada in this section of the country, but it's also super expensive to live here.
Yeah.
When I retire, I just can't afford to stay here. So
right. And so you're gonna move forward, and you'll be closer to your family, and that's cool.
Some of it.
Yeah, some of them, and you'll have a reason to knit warm things.
Yes, I may need a sweater. I have no sweaters. I don't even have a warm jacket. I have a denim jacket. That's my winter jacket.
Like your 80s Levi jacket?
Yeah. It's not even lined. Yeah, it doesn't get that cold. Well, it gets that cold here for a couple of weeks, and then
that's it. Yeah.
It rains a lot.
Yeah, sure. So what's next? What's next besides you've got a Hufflepuff hexapuff living in a bag. But what's next on your Ravelry? And first how many things do you have, do you think, on your Ravelry queue?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a few years. I don't really use that part of Ravelry. I use the project and the stash.
Okay. So you don't use it like to bookmark things for later necessarily?
No, I probably should, but I don't. I tend to, if I see a pattern I think's interesting, if it's free, I download it right away.
Right.
And then, in a couple of years, my computer dies and I have to get a new one, and the battery's, boop, it's gone.
Oh, you got to have the techie dudes transfer one thing to another.
Usually I kill them good, and they will not be resurrected.
Okay, 2 words, back up.
Yeah, I should do that.
At least put all your patterns on a thumb drive.
Yeah.
Or like I talked to Rhonda, and our new moderator in the group. She prints all the shit out, and she has a binder like this thick. It's all like categorized with tabs.
A binder like that.
Yeah.
I just haven't printed anything in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I usually just print something when I'm going to knit it.
Right.
Otherwise, I have a room over there. The room that's full of printouts and bins of yarn and packing.
I wished I was close enough to come over and
help me organize it, because it's a mess.
I would love to do that, but I would love to fall into your bins. I want to see what you have, because I have heard about a legendary stash for a decade. I would love to see what you have.
Well, most of it's on Ravelry.
Really?
Yeah, just about all of it's on Ravelry. Yeah.
Okay, well, we may have to resurrect the swappage if you ever have anything I need.
No, I love it all except for this.
What is that?
This is the alpaca thing.
Did you tell me about the alpaca thing? You mentioned it the other day, but I don't recall knowing about it before that.
You were asking about, do you have anything that you were talking about righteous ripping?
Yeah, but I don't remember you told me about it.
You can't even see the lace pattern. There's a lace pattern in there. I started this thing. It's a sweater. It has one sleeve. There it is. And it must be a bolero because it's very short. I started it years ago, 15 years ago.
Why is it still there, vexing you?
Oh, it's been in a bag, stuffed in a bin, and I was digging through the bin and went, oh, look at this thing that I haven't touched in
ever
over a decade. So I should
rip it.
I should, but I have no use for the yarn. I don't know.
Why?
Well, I don't know what I'd do with it.
Knit a hat.
I think I have 2 bags of this stuff. This one bag is mostly in this this thing. Look, there's my provisional cast off so I could do some hem treatment on the sleeve.
So if it's like 100% alpaca, you should like reskein it, steam it so it gets all the kinkiness out of it, and like put it on eBay. Really?
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll need an alpaca wrap once I'm
Maybe.
in Saskatchewan.
You could do a garter stitch mindless shawl.
Yeah, maybe.
For your prairie winters.
Yeah.
So what's next though? What's on your knitting next? I mean, besides the mate to that green stripy sock, what are you doing after that?
I think I will do I want to do a color work sock because
Right.
I have a lot. That's where I started talking a while back. This thing is Dream in Color Smooshy, a lot of it, which is big skeins. Like there's a skein, except that's all. I only used about half of each skein on this thing, so
right.
I have.
Yeah. Well, and Dream in Color Smooshy is also like it's super wash fingering weight, so it's actually.
But it's merino, so might not wear so great for a sock.
Speaking of which, you know how you and I always love socks that rock, but then you're like, well, it doesn't wear very well. Yeah. I used to think it did, but now I'm like, my kids have worn out already, a couple. So I'm like, I'm kind of disappointed about that.
Yeah, but it's merino. It's a shorter staple than what Regia is made out of, or Regia, however you say it.
Or Opal.
Or Opal, or those workhorse yarns.
Yeah, I love those.
I like my sock yarn to have a good chunk of nylon in it.
Yeah, for sure. A good 25% of nylon mixed in with that. Yep. I agree.
This has no nylon, so I don't know. Maybe I should just knit another shawl. I've got so much of it,
Yeah.
About 50 grams of each.
I know what. Download that adventurous one that I showed you earlier and do it with me.
But I have cousins squalling for socks.
They can wait.
Yeah, they've waited quite a while.
I suppose. Okay, but you're right. Like this stuff, this is socks that rock, like medium weight, but it was a factory second. It's the the rare gems. You can get them at a good price.
Yeah.
But this is why. See, it has the spits. That weren't dyed properly. Yep. Right here. It's got the bits. Right. But that's okay. It's a fingerless mitt. It doesn't have to put up with like my feet being in winter farm boots or anything like that. It's a mitt. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine for mitts.
Yeah. And then, you and I were talking about the shawl ideas for my kids that want shawls, and we school at home for the viewers. And so during the day when they're sitting by the wood stove, like they want something on their shoulders. But I'm not sure that the big wrap like you're wearing would like, I don't know if that would work very well for them to wind up, because they just need something that's going to stay on. I know. I'm like, they need something that's just going to stay on their shoulders while they're typing and doing their work. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm thinking like I have many, many skeins of socks that rock that might be fantastic for that purpose.
Yeah. Because that whole pattern in garter?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It'll be great.
Just knit in your ends as you go, and
yeah. And if I end in mid row, then I might have to do like a Russian join or just maybe, I don't know. Do you think it's secure enough to overlap the two strands and then knit them together for about 10, 15 stitches and then carry on? Have you ever had that come loose?
I think I was doing stretches like between 2 and 4 inches.
Yeah, right, but what I'm saying is
carrying the tail of the drop yarn.
If I was knitting a shawl though, like the Faroese one that I showed you, if I had to change colors in the middle of the back, for example, in the middle of the piece, not on the end, and I was knitting overlapping the ends, and then I would just knit together, holding them together, 2 strands together. I mean, yes. That would be secure enough in the middle of the back? Or would I actually like tie a little knot and carry on?
No knots.
I know, right? Well, either that or I'll have to do the Russian join thing, you know?
Oh, and then you carry each tail the opposite direction.
Yeah. Which is still a double thickness, but I'm like, is that necessary really for a shawl? I don't know. So I'm asking Val because she's a very accomplished knitter, and I want to say this. You know, you guys know how, like in my tutorial videos, I always say, you're the boss of your knitting. I always say, you're the boss. I got that from Val.
I got it from Elizabeth Zimmerman.
Well, I know, but I heard it first from you, and so I attribute it to you because back in the day, I was working on what for me at the time was a very complicated sock pattern. The Ornette socks by Cookie A, twisted stitches.
Pretty involved.
It's a relatively complicated pattern. I mean, and for me at the time, I had a brain splodey over it, really.
Yep.
And I set it aside for a while. I put it in timeout for a little while. And when I came back to it after a month or a couple of weeks or whatever it was, it all of a sudden made sense because I had talked to you and you were like, well, you're the boss of it, you know? And I remember you gave me this little like sock pep talk. And I always remembered that. And so I always say that. And I know that you got that from Elizabeth Zimmerman. May she rest in.
Yeah, her books are awesome.
Yes. And for those of you who don't know who we're talking about, Elizabeth Zimmerman was a fantastic author.
That's where my love of knitting in the round comes from.
Yes. I don't know when she passed away.
Patterns, that's because of her.
And I don't know how long ago she passed away. I mean, I could look that up. But her daughter, Meg Swanson, is a very accomplished knitter as well and has fantastic patterns and books. And Schoolhouse Press has published most of her work, Elizabeth's work. So anyway, amazing people. I mean, and I think Elizabeth Zimmerman was like brilliant. Because like I look at the baby surprise jacket and that's garter stitch and it's all knitted together. But then all of a sudden it's like origami and you fold it. Have you ever made one?
No babies.
Well, I didn't know if you'd ever made one like for someone else.
No.
I've done it for someone else because I didn't ever knit that for my own children. I wasn't knitting that much when my kids were born, but I've made it a couple of times for other people, like for shower gifts or whatever. It's brilliant. I mean, you knit the whole thing in one piece and the increases, it looks like a rag. It looks like something you'd fish out of your rag drawer. And then you realize when you fold it, you're like, bing, the light bulb goes off and you have like one seam and that's it. And you have this amazing little sweater.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And she called it the baby surprise. It truly is a surprise once you fold the whole thing up. Yeah. You could make a grown-up version for On the Prairie.
Maybe that's where all this alpaca will go. I don't know.
Yes. She actually has a version, a grown-up one. I think it is called the Adult Surprise Jacket. Yeah, you should check it out. Don't you love it? I'm telling you what to knit.
Yeah, you're very bossy.
I know.
These are the socks I'm wearing today because I know people want to know.
That's fantastic, and you just finished that.
I made this up as I went along, so there is absolutely no pattern for these.
It's the same riverbed architecture, but then Val does whatever Val wants to do on the top.
Yeah.
So
it's just crossing, stitches crossing two at a time. No cable needle. Anyway, I'll put it back on my foot because it's cold.
Here's what I want to know. Here's what I'll ask you about that. Normally, how did you know how many stitches to increase your cast on based on the cables? Because cables suck up your diameter or your circumference. I mean,
yeah, I think most of my socks aren't super tight. Like I don't have a ton of negative ease. So I don't know. I just cast on a likely number of I start with 10 or 12 and then I increase to, what I normally would end up with. Like, I can't even remember on these if they were
64
70 stitches or something. I think I allowed a little bit extra because of the cable business. And this yarn's really skinny too, so you need more stitches.
So you didn't
if it's too small, I rip it out and I make it bigger.
Right.
If it's too big, I rip it out and make it smaller.
You didn't think to yourself, okay, because I'm doing these cables, I'm going to need 20% more with tape. No. Val,
planning ahead? No.
Val,
this sock got ripped back to the toe at one point because there was some reason for it. So that's the thing, when you don't have a pattern, there's usually quite a bit of frogging that goes on.
Yeah. You're not afraid to frog back. You're definitely never afraid to just rip that out and go back to the original toe and then carry on. You're not afraid to do that.
Nope.
And that's what I think that people that are newer, that are novice knitters, they like think it's the freaking end of the world if they have to. I'm like, all right, calm down. It's okay. You can have a do-over. It's okay.
Yeah, it's just yarn.
Right. Right. And we don't think anything about like ripping out hundreds and hundreds of yards, and other people are like, oh. Right. Well, you've met my husband. He like, whenever he sees me pulling stuff, he just cringes and like walks away. He can't even hardly stand to watch.
Oh, John likes it when I rip stuff. I'll be looking at something going, what do you think? And he'll go, rip it out. Settle down there, buddy.
Why do you think it gives him great joy?
I don't know.
That's funny.
Destruction. I don't know.
All right. So you still haven't said what you're going to knit next.
Oh, colorwork socks.
Colorwork socks. You think?
I don't know.
Okay.
I downloaded a couple patterns yesterday. I'll pick one and.
All right. So we'll watch for that project.
I'll the charts from it, and probably that's about it.
So we'll watch for that in the group for you to show us work in progress Wednesday of your next colorwork sock.
You know, I like to show off my stuff.
We all do. We all like to share our knitting. That's fantastic. All right, Val, I'm glad you joined me. It's nice.
Well, it's nice chatting with you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
All right, until next time, we'll see you in the group.
Okay.
Okay.